Well, for the past few weeks, we've been talking about feelings, nothing more than feelings. And I received this the other day. It's talking about the psychiatric hotline and some of the promptings you might hear if you would call the psychiatric hotline. It says very simply, welcome to the psychiatric hotline. If you are obsessive compulsive, press 1, press 1, press 1, press 1, press 1. If you are codependent, have somebody press 2 for you. If you have multiple personalities, please press 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you are schizophrenic, press 1 and you do the same. If you are depressed, it doesn't matter what you press because nobody's going to answer anyway. Now, when you're depressed, don't you feel like that? That nobody really cares, that nobody really understands. You're kind of shut off from everybody around you, and depression is a major issue in our culture today. Dr. John Stott said this: the chief occupational hazard for the Christian is depression and also discouragement. He said that is a chief occupational hazard for Christians today, the idea of depression. Depression has been called the most common psychiatric symptom, the most common of all. And it's amazing how many people struggle with depression. Let me ask you today, have you ever been depressed? Or maybe even more pointedly, are you depressed even today? Maybe it was just a mild case, the blues, and you were kind of singing the blues for a while, or maybe it was a deep, dark, intense time in your life. And maybe you're going through one of those times of intense depression right now. I think it's safe to say that depression is, in fact, a part of modern life in the United States of America and in the world. I was reading an article just the other day in USA Today, and it reported about the use of antidepressant drugs. And it said that the use of these antidepressant drugs has doubled in the last 10 years. In the last decade, it's literally doubled. 10%, according to this report, of the American population are now taking those antidepressant drugs on a regular basis. So if I had 10 people standing up here, 1 out of every 10 would be on antidepressant drugs. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if you need them. And a lot of people do need those types of drugs, and not just for depression, but for some other health issues as well. And I understand that. But at the same time, that climb in the usage of antidepressant drugs shows us that depression is increasingly becoming a major problem in our society. In one report, according to USA Today, children as young as 3 years of age are being diagnosed as chronic depressive. 3 years young, and yet they're experiencing depression like adults. Depression is real, folks, and it is a real problem even among believers. Now, sometimes we think, I wish I lived back in the Bible days, because those great heroes of the faith, those great heroines of the faith, they never struggled with depression. Boy, they never had those kind of problems at all. They just sailed through life, and they were always on the mountaintop. They were always living in a perpetual state of spiritual victory. They never had these problems like we have today, especially the problem of depression. I don't know what Bible you're reading, friend, if you have that conclusion, but you're not reading the real Bible. Because in the real Bible, some of the greatest heroes of God struggled intently with depression. Some of them were singing the blues just like many of us sing the blues. Some went through intense, dark times in their life. And this morning, I want to introduce you to 3 great heroes of the faith, all of whom experienced tremendous bouts of depression. They were heroes. I'm talking about these are the major headliners of the Bible. And yet at the same time, they experienced depression. Now, who are these 3 guys? First of all, Moses. Secondly, Elijah. And thirdly, Jonah. Prophets of God, men of God, preachers of God, great heroes of the faith. And yet every single one of them went through a bout of major depression. So let's look at them and look at their stories this morning. First of all, notice this. The Bible tells us the truth about their depression. Let's start with Moses. He's one of the big names in the Old Testament, and he did some incredible things for the Lord through the Lord's power. For example, God gave him the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Perhaps you've read that, or perhaps you saw the movie. And God gave to Moses the 10 Commandments. And then what about the Red Sea? God parted the Red Sea so that all of Israel went across on dry land. It was an impossible situation, but God made a way where there was no way. And then through Moses, manna was rained down from heaven to feed all those people for 40 years as they journeyed through the wilderness. And then also through Moses, he was able to bring water out of a rock. Those are tremendous things. I mean, those are great things on a spiritual resume, and all those things were things that took place in Moses' life. And yet at the same time, here was a guy who struggled with depression. In Numbers 11:15, listen to that. What it says, and if thou dealt thus with me, kill me, I pray you, Lord. Kill me. You know what Moses was saying? Lord, I just want you to take my life. I'm so depressed. I'm so downtrodden. Just kill me and take my life. I would call that depression, wouldn't you? Have you ever felt like praying for God just to take your life? Have you ever said, Lord, I can't deal with these problems any longer. They're too vast. They're too great for me. I can't deal with them. Lord, just take me home. I know that I'm saved. I know where I'm going. Just take me home. Moses felt that way. And he prayed and said, Lord, just kill me. Just strike me dead right now. I would call that depression. Next up is a man by the name of Elijah. 1 Kings 19, verse 4. Listen to what he prays. It's enough now, O Lord. Take away my life, for I'm not better than my brothers. Kill me, Lord. Now, Elijah was a crusty old prophet of God. And he challenged the prophets of Baal and the prophets of the Grove to a spiritual showdown on Mount Carmel. You'll read about that in 1 Kings chapter 18. Make a note of that, 1 Kings chapter 18. All these prophets gather together, and they're going to have a spiritual showdown to determine who the real, true, genuine, living God is. It would be like us gathering together all the leaders of all the different religions today, and maybe going to some great mountain and standing on top of that mountain. Maybe the leaders of Islam and the leaders of Buddhism and the leaders of Hinduism and the leaders of Jehovah's Witnesses and the leaders also of Mormonism and all the other cults and isms that are out there, and gathering all these prophets and all these spiritual leaders together to determine once and for all who the real God truly is. That would be a major event, and so it was in Elijah's day. It was a major event. All these prophets were there. And the God who answered by fire, we know, is the true and the living God. The God of the Bible, the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, the God that you and I serve, he was the one that sent down fire on Mount Carmel. And you must think, well, hey, Elijah must have been on the mountaintop there, and he must have lived in the adrenaline of that experience for months and months and months, right? Wrong. That took place in chapter 18 of 1 Kings. Chapter 19, verse 4, he's under a juniper tree saying, God, just kill me. Just take my life right now. Elijah was depressed. I would say he was in a major state of depression. And then what about this guy by the name of Jonah? Jonah was a missionary to the Gentiles before it was popular to be a missionary to the Gentiles. And God called him to go to a place called Nineveh. Now, that doesn't mean very much to us, but Nineveh was located in what today is modern-day Iraq. That gives you some idea of the geography. And that's where he was called to go. And these people were ruthless people. They were pagans. They murdered people. They were known for their brutality. They were terrorists. Everybody in the ancient world knew about them. And God said, Jonah, you're my man. I want you to get on a boat. I want you to go to Nineveh. And I want you to preach to those people judgment that's yet to come. And you know the story of Jonah, how he went the other way. He caught a ship going to Tarshish, the whole story of the storm at sea. He was swallowed by a great fish. And folks ask me, can you swallow that? Yes, I can. I believe there was a great fish that literally swallowed Jonah. And you say, why do you believe that? Because Jesus used it as an illustration of his own death, burial, and resurrection. He said, just like Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days, so the Son of Man will be in the belly of the earth for 3 days and for 3 nights. Now, if Jesus used that as an illustration, I believe it actually happened just the way the Bible says. said. And there was a great big fish, and it swallowed this rotten prophet. And then it spewed him out because he was so rotten.